Welcome back to my channel. I'm Melanie and I'm very happy you're here. Today we're gonna talk about all the books I've read in January 2020. So first to start off with some statistics. You know what I mean. I've read 12 books this month and I had a great reading month because I've rated one of them 2 stars, 2 of them 3 stars, two of them 4 stars, and 7 of them 5 stars. Like, amazing. And I've read 5 paperback and 7 audiobook. And other stats, in terms of genre, I've read 1 classic play, 1 contemporary, 2 low fantasy, 2 high fantasy, 1 graphic novel, 1 historical fiction, and 3 science fiction. Like, I've read a very wide genre. And yeah, I don't know if you're interested, but in terms of nationality, I've read Australia, England, France, Nigeria, and United States. So let's get started on the books. I'm gonna present them in order of how I rated them, so from the lowest rated to the highest rated. And to start with, a big deception is Illuminae by J. Christoph and Amie Kaufman. It's to tell you the story. It's set in space in 2500 something. We follow Katie and Ezra, 2 teenagers that are used to be a couple, but now they're not, and they're ripped apart and put on different ship. And so what is interesting and intriguing in this book is the way it's written. So we don't follow them like a regular book, but we rather see excerpts on like stuff they send each other or with other people, like live chat things, or we have like some reports, like official reports, or we have an AI, a computer on board of one of the ship, who's we have his written script as well. Like, this is one of the more official excerpt from the database, and we have like some Wikipedia pages and stuff like that. So the format is very interesting. I enjoyed it for most of it, but I don't know, I think it's the YA side of it. I really didn't care about the romance, and what was very fun with those characters is they were very sassy, like very they had a very bitter way of saying stuff, you know, like angry teenager all the time. But it felt like every character in there was speaking like that. I couldn't really, there was no difference like between different characters. They all were playing with each other and like answering each other in the same sassy way, like, but it's not realistic. Like, for me, I love reading this and I think it's very funny, but I couldn't be like that all the time, like in every conversation I have with my friends. And so it seemed like I couldn't relate really. And then I was reading Asimov at the same time, and the AI was conducting himself in some way that I was like, what? This is not logical. Like, I didn't, there was some stuff that made no sense for me, and I could just not suspend my belief and like pour myself into these books and like be very into the story. So yeah, that was a big deception. I don't think I'm gonna continue with the series because no, this book really wasn't for me. Sorry. Next we have Macbeth by Shakespeare. I've been into this mood where I read Shakespeare because I've never read them and I don't know what they're about. And this was enjoyable read. I gave it 3 stars, so right in the middle. And the writing is beautiful. You could relate to the character, the struggle they go through, and you see their internal, even though it's a play, you can see their internal struggle as they go bad. And I did some research afterwards, and it was very nice to read this book. And I recommend, of course, it's Shakespeare. Like, if you want to expand your general culture, and yeah, nothing else to say. Next we have The Complete Robot by Isaac Asimov. I really wanted to get into science fiction, and so this is my first read. I started it back in November, and it took me this long to actually finish it. It's a short story collection about robots and AIs and computers, and the way Asimov does it, it's wow, there is so much thought behind all this. Like, it's super logical, and of course Asimov invented the 3 laws of robotics, and you see it plenty of time there, and you also see plenty of ways around it, and how all the problems that it could cause, and I really enjoyed it. Of course, there is plenty of different stories in there, some very short, some a bit longer. You have recurring characters, so you can follow them, and it's very interesting. But sometimes the writing style was a bit hard for me to read in English, so I switched to an ebook edition in French for some of them, and some of them I read on audiobook because I felt like this book I could not get through it. So I found some iRobot stories on audiobook and I listened to them, which was I would not recommend. It was not very easy to get into as an audiobook. But I still want to continue and read more of his work. He printed himself a list of the order you should read all the books he released, and this was the first one, and then the second one is Cave of Steel, which is part of a series, and I'm gonna read it next month. So yeah, finally I finished it. Next we have La Lune Blanche. It's a French graphic novel all about Antarctica. It's 2 brothers. One of them is a drawer, an illustrator, and the other one is a photographer, and they both were part of an expedition to Antarctica, and it's you can see the scientific way, and they explain to you a bit of the history of how Antarctica was discovered, the first people to go to the South Pole, and it's beautifully designed, and you have some photographic picture in there as well, and it's beautiful. It's very stunning, and you can see the world. Like when you're over there, it's like an entire different world. So I loved it. Very interesting, but I don't know if it's translated. Next I've read Stay With Me by Ayọ Adebayo. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry. I listened to it on audiobook. It's a story, it's set in Nigeria. The author is Nigerian as well. It follows a couple who is married and in love, and they're trying to have a child, but they cannot. And yeah, you just see their internal struggle, and in Nigeria it's very, very common to have several wives, but they decided together to just have a monogamic relationship, and you can see the family pressure on it, the family pressure to have a child, and it's a beautiful story. It's surprising. It surprised me so many times, and it felt very refreshing to see a story that is not set in the Western world, and to see something else for once. I loved it, but it's not my favorite genre, so yeah, of course it was not like wow, but I really enjoyed the plot and the intrigue and what it did for me. Next, we have my reread of Harry Potter. So these are my French edition, but I've listened to it on audiobook. I've read both The Order of Phoenix and The Half-Blood Prince. Of course, still loved and enjoy Harry Potter, and I really recommend the audiobook. I loved it. I wanted to read the seventh and last one right away, but I try to pace myself and read other stuff, but of course, Harry Potter. And next, I, of course, read some Brandon Sanderson, and I continue with the Mistborn second era novel with Shadow of Self and The Bands of Mourning, and I loved it. I just eat them up like in a few days, and I want to reread them soon, maybe when the next one comes out, because it's so intricate and there is so many layers of this story, and I still love the world building behind it, the magic behind it, and I'm completely in love with Sanderson writing style. It's so easy to read, and so captivating, and but at the same time so deep and profound. It makes you think about our world, even though it's a story that is completely made up in another complete world. But yeah, I don't know what to say. I have no words. Brandon Sanderson, read it. Next, I have my buddy read. I started a French buddy read on my channel. Every month I choose a French classic and I read it with you on Instagram. I have a little group where we read it together, and yeah, this book I read with 3 other girls on Bookstagram, and it was so lovely. And there is so many layers to Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince story. You can read it like a child would read it, or you can read it with adults, as an adult with children eyes, and there is a critic of the society in there as well. And it's just so short and so full of so many different philosophical points, and it was so interesting to have everyone see different things everywhere, and yeah, I loved it. So oui, Le Petit Prince. And next we have Where the Crawdads Sing. I didn't know much about this book. It's my friend who gifted it to me for Christmas, and she said she loved it. I've seen it on plenty of channel, but I didn't really listen to the plot or the intrigue, and so I didn't know. And I loved it. Like I'm not very big in annotating books, but I did this one because it was so interesting. It follows a girl called Kia who lives in the marsh in North Carolina. I thought it was like in Louisiana, but no, it's in North Carolina, and it's her growing up outside of society in the 60s, 70s. It follows her and her love of her environment and where she lives, and it's so deep. You have kind of you have 2 timelines in there. You have her growing up, and you have a timelines where a murder happened, and we're trying to figure out who did it. So we follow like a detective and a doctor or something like this, trying to unravel what's going on. And I loved it. I just couldn't stop reading it. I was so into it, and I just love the scientific side of it as well, of just her passion and her love for her environment and the organic, the fauna and flora of where she lives. It was beautiful. I love so many different things in there. And the writing style of Delia Owens as well, I really liked, I really enjoyed. It was a bit flowery, but not too much. So yeah, maybe I'll check out other stuff by her. I don't know if it's her first novel or not. I have to look for it. And I think Reese Witherspoon is going to adapt it as either a series, a show, a series, or a movie. I don't know. And I saved the best for last, of course, Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. This is the new installment in the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. It's a YA science fiction novel where we follow Spencer, who is a teenager and really wants to be a pilot. She lives on that planet who is always under attack by some alien, and the human race is trying to survive those attacks. It's been like 80 years. They're stuck on this planet and cannot get out, and they're under attack. So yeah, and this is the second installment, so it follows right after the event of the end of the other book, and it goes in a completely different way than I thought it would. I was very surprised by it, but I still loved it. The character work in there, the world building in there. I thought Brandon Sanderson was building up to, because there is going to be 2 other books in this series, so I thought it was building up stuff to then follow in the other books, but actually like so many things happen in there. It's not the middle book syndrome, I don't think, at all, because there is so many things that happen in there. You have a trope that is repeating itself, like it was in the first book, and it's in there as well. So I understand that for some people it might be a bit repetitive, but it's totally different. You don't connect with the character the same way. I don't want to say too much. But yeah, the only thing is that in the first book there were designs of the ship, the different ships, and like this, like the different way they do, like when he explains how they fly and stuff, there was designs of everything, and there is a lot of new things in there. You see aliens, you see other monsters and stuff, and I would have liked some design of that because it was quite hard to picture it in my mind. So yeah, I went online and tried to find stuff, but I hope he puts more designs in the next book. So yeah, that's all the books I've read in January. I had a great month of reading and rereading some of my favorite books, and it's such a great start for the year. I hope it continues, and let me know what you've read this month, if you have read any of them, and what are your favorite and your recommendation. I would love it, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye.